In Sweden, this guy shouted a name that was misheard as Spotify. So Daniel and Martin started a startup called Spotify based on the fact that it's spot and identify. And they started it as an invite-only app. Spotify was being used a lot. In 2012, the company said that the users listened to around 1,500 years of music within only 3 months. They raised over $2.1 billion and eventually went public, and their financials have been growing ever since. Their most recent achievement was having 200 million users worldwide. That's just enormous. But let's take a trip to the past. In 2012, when they were raising funds, they had a pitch deck that raised over $100 million. So let's look at it and analyze it. Some decks are written for investors. Others are a little bit unconventional. This is one of those decks. So it started off by Spotify and John Asplund. I hope I said his name right. Maybe I'm wrong. And this guy works as a computer or a software engineer in Spotify. He wasn't one of the founders, but I'm assuming he's the one dictating the deck, and that's why it starts with him. Who am I? The deck itself feels like it has 70 slides, but it feels like things that you would just navigate through very quickly. So it's from Sweden, computer science, this is where he graduated, Shakespeare programming language, and then joined Spotify in autumn of 2006. This is where it starts. So it's sort of a pitch deck that has a storytelling technique of a long pitch deck, just slides one over the other. Who am I? Okay. Whenever they speak, they just show something. So April 2006, the idea, and he put a picture of the two founders. Music itself was going to become like running water or electricity, David Bowie, a quote just to be a little bit of inspirational. I like it when they start like that, but this is an unconventional pitch deck. And then they show a picture of the product, which is Spotify Premium, on such an old iPhone and on an iMac, I assume, very old iMac as well, or a Macintosh, a very old one. And then a picture of Spotify in a home. I assume this is futuristic because at that time, I'm not sure if there was such a product. Similarly, Spotify box, and they put a picture of a product that looks like a Spotify box. And then in February 2012, this is where it starts. So now he starts to speak about traction. If this is really targeted an investor, this is what they care about. 10 million users. They didn't say whether they're paying users or not. But still, if this was 2012, now they have over 200 million users. It's just crazy when you look at this deck and you just realize that yes, the person who took a bet on the investors really landed a good deal. 15 million tracks, 500 million playlists, 1,000 servers in 3 countries. Spotify is a distributed system. It's fast, it's working. How to accomplish that? Cheat as much as possible. So this is not a pitch deck that I would just send to someone via email. This is a presentation. This is what I would call a presentation deck. Fast versus feels fast. Always working versus pretending there is nothing wrong. These are examples of apps because remember, at that time in 2012, there were a lot of slow apps and a lot of problems with Windows Media Player. I think it was even obsolete by then. iTunes even wasn't perfect. So they were talking about these specific products that are always working or pretending that is nothing wrong. I kind of relate to this. Built to fail, redundancy, talk about waffles. These are literally notes for them to talk about. Error recovery, don't forget to test your recovery code. Fire drill, Netflix chaos. On January 15, 1990, AT&T's long-distance cell phone switching to system crashed. Isolation, getting the right tool for the job. Okay, so all of this was the problem slide. Think about it that way because you can't really think of it any other way, but instead of just being a slide, it's a narrative that is being spoken. And then an image of what Spotify should look like. I like it because it's very original and it feels human. It's not complex at all when you look at it really, really well. And then now they're starting to put on their tech, showing how it actually works, the search, the browse, the user, the production search. I would say this is the most technological slide of the deck. Consistency, availability, partition tolerance, and that's how they work in terms of Spotify in general, and they put a cake in the middle to show that this is where they stand. User. Now they're talking about user and how it works. It's a little bit of a technical issue here, or like a technical detail, the master, the slave, and how where you write and where you read, but that was a very long time ago. Search, how it works. So they took the technical slide and they just distributed it into different categories. It's very technical. I'll just swipe through things that I believe are very technical that you might not be interested in. Storage, how it works. There we get to. And then they look at the storage and just as a cycle per se. Playlist, which is the last thing in the technical aspect. And then peer-to-peer. Remember that Spotify at that time had I'm sure they had to settle a lot of lawsuits and problems because Napster, I believe, started this whole revolution back in the days of Facebook, and they were shut down for a reason. Now, why did Spotify not shut down? It's because they learned from that and they played it very well and right, but they were attacked by a lot of celebrities. Data source ratio, and then they ended it. Master's thesis, yes please, or come work for us. So I assume this was could be presented to students, or not necessarily investors, but it is a deck that could be very much raising funds as well, because if it's the same presentation, then it could work, but it has to be convincing in terms of financial questions and what else do you do? Tell me more. This is not a solo deck that's just distributed alone. Nevertheless, it's an entertaining presentation and it shows what Spotify was back in the days, and they had no idea what's coming up. Long deck for sure, but knowing that now they have 200 million users from 10 million users, you have to know that the VCs who actually bet on them were actually very wise to do so. They were part of transforming the music industry per se. I mean, the deck itself tells a very long story because at that time when they were trying to put all the music in one app, celebrities like Taylor Swift and many other people attacked Spotify. Nevertheless, it was a revolution, it was a scary revolution, and they pulled it through, and that's why they are where they are today. Thank you for watching this video. Make sure to like and subscribe because I do a lot of these pitch deck analysis. Additionally, have a fantastic day.